All right, let's get started. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to attend this webinar. My name is Mohamed. I'm a Senior Solution Architect with the Dynamics 365 Fast Track team. I'm here joined by my colleague Martin Istrowski, who is going to be helping with answering some of your questions over chat. Today, we're talking about approaching transition from process dialogue, how to talk about, basically what's the current status, what are like process dialogues, where we are today, some of the recommended practices when you look at like replacement option, how to review your use scenarios, understanding and measuring the business value behind your existing process dialogues, and some of the approaches and recommendation when designing alternative solutions. So we'll start first by understanding the process dialogue. So basically where we are today, back in June 2017, we announced that process dialogues would be deprecated. Deprecated means that we intend to remove the feature or capability from a future major release. The feature or capability will continue to work and fully supported until it's officially removed. Where we are today is that back in September 2019, we announced the deprecation of the legacy web client. And because process dialogue mainly are accessible today through the legacy web client, so customers are required to make the move to unified interface by December 1st, 2020, and process dialogues will not be supported on unified interface. So an action for everyone, if today you have process dialogues, if you haven't moved yet from process dialogues, you need to start thinking about like how to move and include this. If you're already on legacy web client, how to move this as part of your transition to unified interface. So just going back a little bit of history and what are process dialogues. So process dialogue was introduced, I believe, in CRM 2011. They're basically a wizard-based experience that allows you to configure a step-by-step data entry wizard to guide the user through a specific set of pages or capture a few responses, basically to automate a specific task or a number of tasks or activities. Back then, process dialogue was really useful. However, it came with a few limitations. It was only linear in motion. It can only go in one direction. It wasn't supported on mobile devices. Other devices were only accessible through the web. You don't really have access to. You don't have a lot of visibility when it comes to progress. You're just jumping between one page to the other, and it only works in synchronous mode. Only triggered by the user through the UI. So you can, potentially, if you want to automate the same process, you have to basically redo some of the work that you have done as part of the of your dialogue. And it was only specific to Dynamics 365. So how do you find your process dialogue today in your environment? So if you're on unified interface, you can go to the gear icon on the top right side and hit advanced settings. Advanced setting will take you to the legacy web client setting page. From there, you can navigate to processes, select active processes, and then use the grid filter to basically filter your process by process category and set it to dialogue. This will give you a list of all of your current active dialogues. Again, if you look at some of the legacy implementation, you might not be aware that you already have some of the active dialogue that is still being used. From there, you can look, dig into the dialogue itself, look at any of the any of the process history of the dialogue, how many times it was run, who's running it, so you get a little bit insight on the usage in your environment. So the first thing that you want to start when we're talking about dialogue replacement is really understanding your use case and what is the customer scenarios, what are the use cases. So before you start, it's always a good idea to review your implementation. Try to answer these following questions. So again, how many dialogues do you have? Try to categorize these dialogues. What are these dialogues used for? Are they used for example, for approval, for automating sub-processes that you want to include as part of your main process? Are you looking at creating a few related records or activities out of these dialogues? And then, like, who's using the dialogue in your organization? What role do they play? How do they access these dialogues? And what are the frequency of access? How frequent are they using this? And what are the gaps and challenges that you have today? So, for example, one example is that if you have dialogues today that are used by sellers, and sellers are usually mobile users that you use their mobile devices, so that would typically be one of the challenges that they need to run their dialogues through the web client. Try to also take the time to do like a demo with the business users, with the business stakeholders, do a walkthrough, understand each of the categories and dialogues that you have. Another thing to look at is also understanding the border process behavior. So as part of those walkthroughs and this evaluation, it's so important for you to understand how dialogue have been used in the border context of your business process. So the best solution for you might change depending on these scenarios. So it's really a question of like, what is the business process needs? Because it might be that you're looking for like just a straight dialogue replacement, but you might also be looking at overhauling your business process to leverage some of the new features that we have that might eliminate the need to have a dialogue to begin with. So the second part is really measuring the business value. So once you're done with understanding where how many dialogues you have, how users are using it, the categories and all of that, so you need to also understand the business value and how important these dialogues are in your migration effort. So get a good understanding of how process dialogues are used today, the benefit of using them, and any challenges of gap in satisfying your business requirement. In addition, you also want to define some of the KPIs to measure your transition. So like how some of the KPIs such as like time, speed, accuracy. So these things like how effective, so that you can measure your alternative approaches and how effective they are in satisfying your business requirement and potentially eliminating some of the gaps that you already have with the process dialogues today. This is one good example of a template that you can use as a baseline for your transition dialogue planning. So if you look here, so you basically start breaking down your dialogue into categories, business scenarios, prioritization based on the feedback from the business. What's the border business process? What's the current state? What's the expected results? I'm not going to go through each one of these columns, but this will be made available for you later on. But think about your adoption when you're looking at transitioning from process dialogue, and always engage the business as you design and as you go through the designing and experimenting with the different approaches. You want to make sure that the business are involved as much as possible. You're running the new experience by them and capturing feedback. Document any potential gaps from a product or a platform standpoint. any gaps, any bugs, or any concern, make sure that you reach out to Microsoft support to log these as soon as possible. And if you're a Fast Track customer, if you're engaged with Fast Track Architect, make sure that you raise those concerns, gaps, or blockers to your Fast Track Architect. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about categorization and recommended solution for every category of pattern that we have seen. Again, these are just to reiterate on some of the design best practices. Again, just reiterating what we have just discussed, evaluate whether that you're going to develop a migration answer versus a full adjustment. And that really is driven from understanding that border business process that your existing dialogues is part of, and do you really just need to a mitigation answer, a one-to-one replacement approach, or you could potentially have a full adjustment to your business process. Again, build a POC, proof of concept example for the solution before committing to any specific final outcome. Gain business feedback throughout the design process. And for consistency, you want to basically try to have a guideline for each category of dialogue replacement. So, for example, if you're using that, if you have a one or two dialogues today that they trigger a sub process, you want to basically have one to try as much as possible to have one approach for triggering sub process. Similarly, if you have if your dialogues if you use dialogues today, for example, to run approval processes, you want to have like one specific approach to manage approval. Of course, there are always some exceptions, so that is fine, but it's a good practice to basically have a guideline for each category, and then depending on the business use case and the business scenario, you might have one or two exceptions. All right, so let's really look at the dialogue classification. So throughout our engagement, what we have seen is these are some of the common dialogue patterns that we have seen with most of our customers. So the first and foremost, this is probably the most popular one, is a wizard-like experience, and this is really aligns with what the dialogue were meant and designed to be to begin with. And that's basically a series of steps and conditions organized in specific order that the user needs to complete or achieve a certain goal. So and this really is, I would say, 80% of what we see when we're looking like to active dialogue usage. The second one that is really popular is also approvals. So again, triggering an action for a user to specifically approve or reject a request, and that inherently basically takes this approval and start a sub process to get these records approved. The third one is sub processes, and this could potentially be if you're, for example, if you're managing a case or if you're managing an opportunity, you'd likely, in a case scenario, you would likely trigger an investigation or a research. So you would want to run your dialogue, and it will basically go and create related records that they will have their own processes to complete. Another popular pattern that we have seen is really to emphasize on a specific set of information that you want to capture as part of the your record. So, for example, if you want to specifically like provide a reason to override the status for a case. So these are like capturing those critical information is one usage that we see as well. And also critical process steps, so that review and confirm a critical process decision that could have a border impact. For example, like if you wanna escalate your case, so you could potentially have a dialogue that would escalate the case along with providing a little bit more details, like why are you escalating the case, add a few comments, select a reason for the escalation, and so on. But also some of the time that it could simply just mean that you want to simplify your process, and this basically could potentially be like automating the creation of certain tasks and activities based on a predefined template. So you could potentially have a dialogue that will capture a few input from the user, and it will go on and create related tasks and activity for that record. The other one that we also have seen come up a couple of times is really just data entry and validation, and this is mostly usually associated with long legacy form. And if you have an old version of Dynamics where you would like have lots of fields on your main form, we've seen some usage of dialogues where like users will go directly and use dialogs to launch a dialog to basically update certain sections or fields on the form, and basically avoiding working directly on the forms. So these are some of the common, I would say, classifications or patterns that we have seen. And if we look at the core capabilities that we have today for replacement, we have a broader set of features and capabilities that you can use to replace your dialogs. So you can look at it by replacing some of the Dynamics 365 and Power Platform capabilities like Canvas apps and Power Apps, Power Automate, Mainform Dialog, which was recently introduced as part of the 2020 release Wave 1, or Playbooks. Really, the final decision approach will depend on the dialog requirement, the broader business process, and the user experience that you want to present. So this is sort of like a guiding metrics that you can use as a starting point to evaluate your approach to designing a replacement for a process dialog. So for example, if you want to have a wizard-like dialog, a Canvas app or a business process flow would probably be a good starting point. Again, this is not a definitive replacement guide, but really a good starting point for you to start thinking about that. So for example, for approvals, it's a good chance that you probably can leverage Power Automate because it has a native out-of-the-box approval process, and it comes with over 150 approval templates. So you're likely to be able to find what you're looking for as one of these templates, or you can even create your own approval process from scratch with a configuration point and click configuration only versus the need to have to develop an approval process in Dynamics. So what I'm going to do now is like I'm going to take a few examples and I'm going to walk you through some of these replacement options and how they would typically fit. So if I look at the process dialog, one example here that we have like a change membership type. So let's say, for example, that you have a gym, a fitness center, and you have members, and you have a customer service agent that we need to change their member type. So typically that they would have a multi-page dialog. The dialog will really guide them throughout that experience, which would basically like, okay, like what would be the actions that you would like to perform? This would be the entry point for the dialog. And you can have multiple options, whether like you want to change the membership, convert the membership tier, for example, or even cancel the membership or update personal information. Once you select which type of service that you want to perform, it will take you to the next page. So, okay, what's the new membership type? What's the reason for the change, and what's the effective date? And then you would have like a final confirmation page in the dialog that would say like, okay, confirm what you have selected, add some comments or notifications, for example, notify the customer, yes or no, and then you complete the dialog, and the dialog will basically start executing the sub processes in the background to do the change. So if we want to replace this in a like-to-like wizard-like experience, probably a standalone Canvas app is probably a really good starting point for you. So you can use the low code. What you see is what you get: Canvas app designer to create a custom layout. This really puts you in full control of how you want the user experience to look like. You can also benefit from connecting multiple data sources with your Canvas app, so it's no longer limited to just the data and the information that you have available in Dynamics 365. You can design multi-step Canvas app to guide the users through scripts across multiple stages. And really, Canvas apps are really flexible enough that you can tailor the design to your needs. As we can see here, this is just a pop-up of a Canvas app that is really, it's fully customizable. You have all of the options on the left side of the Canvas app, and then you can have multiple stages per each action. So some of the recommendation when it comes to standalone Canvas app. So you want to still have, even though it's a standalone Canvas app, you want to embed that user experience right into Dynamics. So these are like really high level guidance to how you would go about, and once you've done embedding your once you have done creating your Canvas app, how to go about and embedding it in your Dynamics 365. So you can use ribbon configuration tools such as ribbon workbench to create a new command bar buttons. In a simple scenario where you just have one app, you could potentially just add a new command button with a new command definition to execute a JavaScript function. Now, if you do have multiple dialogues and you would need to have multiple Canvas apps to meet the needs of your existing business requirement, you can use the command bar dynamic menu, which is the fly out menu, to display multiple apps. And you can also automate the configuration of this by having a custom entity where you can have the association between your Canvas apps and entities in Dynamics 365. You can dynamically load the command bar fly out menu, and this is a link to how to create and configure a dynamic ribbon, a command bar button. You can use the open URL function to launch your Canvas app, and you can also use that to pass on the existing record ID as a query string to your Canvas app, so the Canvas app gets the context of the Dynamics record and preload any or set the default values if needed. As a recommendation, start with a new Canvas app for each process dialog, and depending on the complexity, you might be able to combine these dialogs into a fewer or one Canvas app. Another option to look at, so what we have discussed now, it would basically launch the Canvas app in a new tab or a new browser window, depending on your browser settings. An alternative for that is to basically embed your Canvas app in a web resource, and you can embed your Canvas app in a web resource and use the navigate to client API to launch the app in a model experience. So this is how it will look like. Note that the user must use the close button highlighted here in the screenshot in the upper left, in the upper right corner, to exit the model dialog experience. But also something to consider is embedded Canvas apps. So for example, if the users are going to use this app frequently, so you might actually consider embedding the Canvas app on one of your forms. You can use role-tailored, role-based form to basically have those embedded Canvas apps available for a specific specific group of your users. And with that, you can also go beyond than just replacing the dialogue and leverage the full experience and capabilities of Canvas app to enhance the user experience in Dynamics 365. You're able to also potentially embed and surface data from other and information from other data sources in your Dynamics 365 form. Another option that you could also consider as an alternative to Canvas apps is using a customized web resources if you want a wizard-like experience. And use web resources to capture critical details and execute process steps. You can use pro developer frameworks such as React and along with Office UI Fabric to create a web resource that have the look and feel of the Dynamics 365 model-driven app. And really, between this and the Canvas model app, it really provides that similar pop-out experience that you would get with the legacy process dialogues. So some of the recommendation when it comes to if you decide to go with the web resources approach. So again, customize your command bar similar to what we have discussed with the standalone Canvas app. Use tools like Ribbon Workbench to create new command bar buttons. You can use the parent.xrm to gain access to Dynamics 365 context. And this basically allows you to use xrm.web API for data manipulation, such as retrieving, creating, or managing records. Again, use the navigate to client API to render your web resource in a model experience. And remember that if your web resource is going to modify any of the underlying Dynamics record details, it's a good idea to refresh your main form when you close the dialog by using the navigate to API events. Again, similarly, because you're using the navigate to events, note that the user must use the close button as part of the pop-up to exit the model experience. Another example or another alternative approach is simply to use the business process flow. Again, if you go back in time when the process dialogs were introduced into CRM 2011, business process flow did not really exist. So that could potentially be a really good option for you as you're looking for an alternative. And really, business process flow offer like a guided experience that has a visual representation as part of your main form. So one business scenario here that we can see is like you want to have you need a process that is required to complete a data verification. For example, an account manager needs to verify a document to either approve or reject the document. So you can basically use the business process flow as part of the form to capture the verification details, approval, override and exception details as part of their main form. Another good option is quick create form. This is extremely useful when you want to trigger a sub process. For example, relationship managers need to assign his account or accounts over to another manager. So the manager is required to raise an assignment request and specify the reason for the request along with any other required details. So really at that point, really it just a simple configuration of the quick create form will definitely achieve that. Then you can have manipulate the quick create form. You can apply some of the business rules that you need as part of that form. Another example to create to trigger a sub-process is using the main dialog form. So main dialog forms is a new feature that we're introducing with the 2020 release wave 1. It's available today as part of the early access. And what main dialog basically do, it allows you to render the entity's main form with no additional changes or no form type. So basically, if you already have a main form for your sub process, for your request, for example, you can leverage the same form along with all of the configurations that you have done. For example, all of the business rules, all of the business process flows, and you can surface this in a model experience without navigating away from your main form. So here is, for example, I have my account form, and if I want to add a new contact, I can basically just click add new contact, and it will pop up the main contact form for me to fill in the details and then hit save and close. Another option is also combine the main form dialog along with the business process flow. So in an example where you're looking at your customer profile and then you want to raise a support ticket or a case, you could potentially easily have a command bar with shortcuts to some of the default types of service requests or cases, and from there you can default some of the fields on the information request or the case form. And once you have created this, right from within the model experience, you can save the new record as well as start using the business process flow as part of the same experience. And once you're done, you basically hit close on the main form dialog, the pop-up dialog, and to return back to your main record form. You can also use main form dialog to embed a Canvas app. So one of the things that you could potentially use is having a custom entity as a container to your embedded Canvas app. One thing to note here is that for an embedded Canvas app to load, you need to save the record. So for example, here, if I have a command bar that says like a new manager, new request manager that will basically pop up the request manager entity, I need to save the form, then the embedded Canvas app will automatically load for me. For dialogues that today you use for approvals, Power Automate is really a good starting point for you. So Power Automate includes approval templates that you can use to meet your requirement. Playbooks is a feature that I think we released it last year as part of our sales app. And what it does is basically capture the organization best practices as they respond to certain events. So playbooks can streamline and automate recurring tasks such as renewing contract or respond to any specific events, such as like if you're managing an opportunity, or if there are changes in the stakeholder and the stakeholders that you're dealing with in the customer. So if you have certain tasks and activities that you want to automate, playbooks would definitely be a good fit for you. One of the examples, again, a decision maker leads an organization while the team is working on a deal with that decision maker. So you could potentially use a playbook template to define certain tasks and activities for your team, for the opportunity owner to start to start addressing and connecting with the new decision maker or the new stakeholder. Again, another alternative, as we've covered Power Automate as a good replacement approach for approvals, but it can also be used as your workflow tools. And one of the things that Power Automate offers is that it offers the ability to basically run on-demand flows with user input. So you can basically have various types of input, such as text, number, files, and so on. So you can have these. It will pop up. It will pop up for the user to enter the required input to run the Power Automate flow. Now, one of the powerful things of using this versus Dialogs is Dialogs was only limited to the Dynamics 365 context, while Power Automate, you're now able to sort of like automate business process and your workflow across not only Dynamics, but you can leverage all of the connectors that we have out of the box across multiple systems. So really, if we look at the next step here, so what we have done here is that we've looked at some of the classifications and common patterns that we have seen where process dialogues are used, and provided you with a little bit of like a starting point to evaluate the different replacement options that we have. So as a follow-up, so basically what you need to do is follow an action plan. So draft an action plan. We'll look at one of these examples. Set up a regular cadence with your Microsoft representative, if you have one. If you have a fast track architect engage with you, make sure that you have a regular cadence with him to discuss your dialogue replacement activities. Report blockers early. So again, leverage your fast track architect, leverage Microsoft support or any Microsoft representative to raise any concerns or blockers that you have. And also, if you're today already going through your unified interface transition, try to align your dialogue replacement effort along with the transition effort that you have. Make sure that you have your stakeholders and business owners engaged in your action plans and gain their approval, and lastly, execute on the plan. This is just a sample action plan. Again, agree on the internal target dates and milestones for migration, review or process dialogues in the context of your business scenario, agree on the design solution for each process, check in with your Microsoft representative, build a POC, report any issues by using our standard support process, gain the business stakeholder approval, build out the design, and always, again, make sure that you align with your user adoption training, update your training materials and content. And lastly, release your solution in the context of the overall unified interface project plan, get feedback, and iterate alongside the business stakeholders. So with that, I'll wrap up the presentation from my side, and I'll open the floor for questions. Martin, I don't know if you have any questions on the chat.
Yeah, there was a few questions, mostly related to content of this presentation. So I already answered to this one. Just for everybody, we plan to publish a recording of this webinar and including also the content on Dynamics 365 community site in the section for Fast Track Tech Talks, where you can find also the previous sessions organized by Fast Track team. And then there was one technical question related to a quick create form, how to pass ID of quick create form. So I shared the link the documentation where I believe that we have this behavior documented. Other than these questions, I think that's more or less everything what we have on chat till now.
All right, if there's nothing else, we can give you some time back. Thank you.